All righty. Hello, everyone. First, welcome to the Yoast SEO update. I'm Carolyn Shelby.
And I'm Alex Moss.
And this is where we run through the recent search news updates and patterns that we're watching and talk honestly with you about what we think they mean.
And we'll separate what we know from what we're still testing or speculating about.
And then we will wrap up with the Q&A at the end. All right, so some notes real quick. If you've got questions, if you look to the right side of the screen, there will be a tab that says Q&A. That is where questions should go. If you ask them in the main chat, we might miss them. So if you want us to see them, put them in the Q&A. That's where they belong. And as always, there will be a recording of the webinar available. Everyone asks every week. Every week, the answer is the same. There is always a recording available. You can find that on our website at yoast.com/webinars. Actually, I think podcasts now. Or specifically, go to yoa.st/May-2026, and you will get to today's episode specifically. So, some quick notes that if you find that this isn't what you were looking for, let's say you were looking for, I'm very new to SEO, I need beginning foundational level information, you would want to attend our SEO for Beginners webinar. The next one is on May 27th, which is next week. I don't know if that's Thursday or Tuesday or Thursday, but it's next week. It's at 4 p.m. European time, 10 a.m. Eastern US time, so New York time. And then we also have the Introduction to Yoast SEO webinar. The next one is on...
I was going to say, I mean, if it either happened on May 13th or it's going to happen on June 13th, but Naringer will tell you the exact date of all the QR.
One of the two, but it definitely already happened. If it happened on May 13th, we have them like every 2 weeks. So if you missed the last one, you can catch the next one. It'll be fine. If you would like to be notified of all of our webinars, make sure that you sign up for our Yoast webinar newsletter. You can get reminders about the next SEO update for Yoast by Yoast and all sorts of other things. I think I get a couple of those a month. So very helpful. That is https, you know the drill, yoa.st/56 which is vague but oddly specific. All right, let's see here, friends. Okie dokie. As always, we've got some helpful icons. If you see a little stopwatch, that means this is immediate impact, so pay attention. If it has little chess pieces, it is long-term strategy, which means it's good stuff to think about, file away, but maybe not immediately actionable this second. And then finally, let's...
Before you say anything, do not answer A, B, C, D in the chat. Hold on.
Yes.
There's more. There's more. Listen.
Okay, so today's poll question, do not answer in the chat. I mean, you can if you want, but there's a poll tab that you need to answer at to be counted. So what concerns you the most about AI-driven search right now? Is it A, fewer clicks to my website, B, difficulty measuring visibility and performance? And that's like my answer right there. C, AI is getting the answer wrong, or D, I'm more excited than concerned. So we'll go over all the answers at the end, but we would love to hear what you have to say.
Thank you for cooperating. There's already just gone 50 votes just then. That's really good.
Excellent. Good job, people. All right, so vote quick. You can vote in the, like I said, the polls tab. If you put it in the main chat, that's great, but it's not going to count in the tally at the end. So if you want your vote to count in the tally at the end, you have to use the polls tab. Okay, now that we've done all the housekeeping, Alex, are you ready to go?
I think so. Let's do this. Because quite a bit happened, as does every single month.
I think you were going to start us off on this one, or was I? I was going to do this one, wasn't I?
Yeah. Yes.
All right. So Google has a guide, released a guide to preferred sources in Google search for web publishers. This is a thing that is generally of most interest to people that have websites that make money almost exclusively on monetizing page views with advertisements. So if you are a shop that sells things, if you sell trinkets, if you sell software, this is probably not something that you're going to be interested in much or care about. But if you are a site that makes the bulk of its revenue by showing ads to people that are coming to your site from search, this is going to be of major interest. Basically, you're giving people, there's a way you can give people the opportunity to communicate to Google that you prefer to get information from this particular news source. So, like, I know Search Engine Land, Search Engine Journal, um, the big newspapers, what's Barry's Search Engine Roundtable?
Yes.
Yeah, they all have this set up. It's a little button you click. It communicates that your preference is to make sure that you're getting updates from that news source. And then it helps that news source make money because it increases the number of impressions they're getting specifically to people who like to click through and look at their website. So it's very good for publishers. If you're not a publisher, this probably doesn't matter to you.
No, I added the URL that you can all navigate to now. I put in domain.com as the example. You can enter any domain, and that's the link that you can do from your site. Or as an end user, consumer, like I'm using it for preferred sources I want preferential treatment from. So you guys actually might want to use it yourself to get more preferred sources when there's a topic of anything.
100%. You, though, can tell me about the Google Search Console fix.
Yeah, so Search Console has been a good source of data for lots of people, except that Google just kind of said that maybe that data wasn't correct and it wasn't accurate, and maybe that you should ignore that data. But everything's cool from today onwards, though, or from the 4th of May onwards. That's kind of what happened. I think they removed some erroneous data. So you may see that something that once was X is now Y. So don't worry, that's not just something that was missing. It was something that was there in the past. I know that can do some odd stuff to your reporting, though. Something you may have thought was more successful than it actually was. But, there's nothing any of us can do about it. And Google kind of said, my bad. And that was it. I don't even think they said sorry about that. I think they just said, my bad, and carried on. Oh, look at that over there. We've got an I/O event next week. That's what they did.
Probably. It's kind of like the unemployment reports that we get in the US. They get revised so radically differently a month or two after they're issued that it doesn't even make sense to listen to it when it comes out now, because it's just wait 2 months. It'll get revised and they'll be different. Real quick, back to Eric's comment. What if you publish content and don't make money? Like if you're a not-for-profit or a think tank or something, you can actually, this is going back to the slide that I just did. You can absolutely still use that preferred publishers thing. It's of most monetary interest to people who make money on their published content. Who it is not of interest to are like shops and people that sell physical things, rather than are trying to just get people back to their site on a regular basis to read their content. So, all righty. Alex, can you also tell me about the UCP checkout? Because not as up on that as you are.
Of course. So yeah, I'm a bit more of a UCP knowledgeable person, as I've been looking at it since it came out. UCP, in short, is a way that it's an open protocol that was made by Google, and it's a method of which an agent can purchase on your behalf, but they're going heavy into it. So even though any merchant could potentially use it, it's in a wait list at the moment. It's only in the US a little bit at the moment as well. But what's worth noting is that they're expanding things. If you're in America, especially, because I can't see this. You always see something before I do, Carolyn, that you can see a product and you can literally buy it right from the search result. And that's very seamless for the end user, yes, but for the site owner, I don't know. Is it a problem or is it not a problem? Because if I do buy it, I bought it. So you've got the conversion from me. I guess the hard thing is again, how it may be attributed, because no one's visited anywhere else and the events happened in the SERP. But again, we can cover that later. Maybe that's covered in analytics elsewhere. But what's worth noting is that agents are going to be transacting on your behalf with your approval for certain things, if not everything eventually, but certain things. And this is something to note if you're e-com of any kind. It's also worth noting, because I don't even think it got into the news, and if it did, I'm spoiler alerting you anyway, but I didn't see it, is that Shopify have now enabled UCP for every single merchant. So if you're a Shopify store, you don't need to worry. You're with WordPress, not that you need to worry, but they've not sorted it out inside Woo or Automatic, and there may be a longer way to go. I would have heard something by now, maybe. But either way, if you can, look into UCP more if you're selling any kind of product at all, because some of it may be just about populating in time for when it all actually gets expanded out globally.
So I have seen I've a little bit of experience with Google, the product feeds and people trying to buy things through the UCP. My biggest problem has been that there's some sort of issue with when you do bundles and the way WooCommerce communicates bundles out to Google, that it will, rather than giving it the price of the bundle, it gives it the smallest component price and shows that as the from like $10. So I had a bundle that one piece was $10 and one piece was $50. So the whole bundle is $60, except it showed that the price was from $10 and people would go to buy it and then they'd get really upset when the total came up as 60. Yeah, so I think for most cases, a lot of these features are really handy, but when you get into slightly more complicated configurations, I would really prefer to have people coming through to my website and not maybe doing the entire transaction outside of my website. Still want the conversion, don't get me wrong, but
not everything. It depends who you are. I guess it depends. Like if you're selling like cheap clothes, then maybe this isn't, worth your time to consider, and then you can let some things go without approval. But then if you're buying a car, there's absolutely no way I would purchase any car or anything online. Although I did meet, Dawn Anderson, she's another SEO. She I was talking to her about this, and she said she bought her car without seeing it, and that baffled me. But she's like, I'm happy with it and I got it. So she's entrusting it. She's delegating more to, not seeing something. I don't know. Car's an extreme thing, but maybe soon, because of personalization and everything, it'll know your style, your fashion style, and it'll know your shoe size. So why can't it just buy you a shoe thinking that you may like it? And you would never have bought it. It's like suggestions, isn't it? But it's just going a step further.
Without getting too into the weeds, like clothes especially, maybe with men's stuff it's different, but with women's stuff, the sizing is so all over the place and non-consistent that there's no way you can tell it. There's no way you can say I'm a size 10, because a size 10 in the US between brands even is wildly different. And you would almost have to give it information like, these are my exact measurements at like 50 different points in my body, and you need to check the size before you buy it against the manufacturer's size charts.
And even with brand, even in brand, and I have noticed it with Adidas, I have different sizes for me in Adidas, and it actually says on some products, well, if you're usually a 9, then you may want the 9.5 of this one because it's got extra padding inside. Those are all very clever things but again, it should assume that later on. We'll see how it goes, but personalization is going to be a big thing over the year ahead. But anyway, that was robots buying for you. Talk to me about search indexing and grounding indexing.
All right, so I think Bing has issued some guidance on the difference between search indexing and grounding indexing, which is great because I know that I've been talking about this. I'm sure you've been talking about it. And I think that the difference, or the fact that there's a difference, is frequently lost in the conversation. So when we talk about traditional search indexing, that there are SEO things you do for traditional search indexing, and then there are things that you're doing to structure your data to make sure that for grounding indexing, that information can also be retrieved, because the systems that do search indexing are different than the systems that do the grounding indexing. Like when we've talked about at inference time is grounding indexing for all intents and purposes. And that's when they're absolutely not executing JavaScript, and they're absolutely not seeing the things that are in the accordion tabs. So things that will work for search indexing are not necessarily going to be compatible with grounding indexing. There are different systems. You need to build for both. And personally, I think the safest way to do that is if you prioritize making sure that things are accessible during grounding. Search just sort of follows along. It's like with buying clothes. When you buy clothes, you'll get the size that fits your biggest dimension because you can always take things in, right? You don't want to tailor something for your smallest dimension because you can't let other things out. So if you look at search indexing as being your smallest dimension and grounding indexing as being your widest point, you want to buy for your widest point. You can always tailor in. You can't do it the other way around. That might have been a little bit too clothing specific.
Fine, we've got a
Point is,
replay, right? Just what?
yeah,
What?
they're
Just
they're
listen to
they're
what Carolyn
different, and
said.
please read that article.
Yeah, read the. I put the article straight to Bing in there, so it can get quite technical, of course. So it may need a couple of, just put the URL into one of your LLMs and ask it to explain it to you like an 8-year-old, and then, and then maybe you might be able to understand it.
No, it makes sense. I think you just need to change your mindset a little bit. All right. So, this is exciting. Do you remember when Google gave us the rich snippets for FAQs and everyone got excited, and then they took them away and everyone was mad, and then they gave them back and everyone was happy again? Guess what? They've taken them away again. So we're back to they're not supporting FAQ rich results any longer.
In the search results, that's really important, that last part of the sentence. Of course, that doesn't mean that you have to throw all of your schema toys out the pram and go and remove any schema at all. All it's saying is that it's not utilizing that schema
Right.
in that area, but it doesn't mean anything at all. It's not being used elsewhere, which it is.
So when they decide they're going to take away support for a particular type of schema, at no point in time does that ever mean you should take out the schema that you've already got on your website. So please do not walk away from this going, I need to strip this out of my site, because you don't. Just because they're not using it doesn't mean it's not still serving its purpose. And it doesn't mean that they won't go back to supporting it in the future or using it in the future. It just means that they're not using it right now. And it says in the article that there's, certain medical sites might still be eligible, government sites might still be eligible. They still can use it. They're just choosing not to. So I would not put all my eggs in the basket of, if I have the FAQ schema on my site, then absolutely all of this information is going to do wildly wonderful things for my SEO. That's not true, but it was really never true. Focus on having good readable structure for both search and at grounding indexing, which is when the LLMs come through and read things. They're not going to see things in toggles. They're not necessarily even looking at the schema because that's hidden in the head, right? Have the text on the page. You can't rely on schema to fix all of your problems. It's there to be supplemental. It is not there to solve all your problems. It's supportive. It's not definitive, if that makes sense.
Which I guess answers Kelly's question of, doesn't grounding indexing not like the FAQ info? And yes, it does, but it won't just give you that snippet. It will bring it into a larger context in the answer by answering the question by default that it may have been asking itself during its research.
The grounding indexing may not look at the JSON LD either. So you definitely need to have that text on the page and visible. So it likes the format of the FAQs in that it's a question and then an answer. It loves that part. What it doesn't like is when you hide it in an accordion or you hide it in a tab. So don't hide things, and provide the information, but don't only have that information visible but stuffed in the JSON LD. So we can talk more about that during Q&A though.
Sure.
Okay. Tell me about how search is shifting toward AI answers.
Well, I mean, it's kind of an extension of, what we were talking about with Bing and grounding and everything. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to paste in a bit of research that Rand Fishkin does. And when he does his research, he does it well. And he was talking about the death of the ultimate guide. And I guess it's the way in which content's going, the commodity, non-commodity stuff as well, that goes hand in hand with that. What's useful to the internet, to the web in general, to agents, and that things like, the self-serving listicles, that was, I guess, a first point of call to this kind of thing of, our ultimate guide's dead and our listicles going to die in a way because LLMs can do the listicle for you. I guess it's the way in which you need to write needs to be a bit more structured and formatted. But hey, we've been through this before, haven't we, in previous updates and, other content that we do.
So I know on Yoast.com, one of the things that we started doing with our ultimate guides is breaking them up into chapters so that they weren't all on one specific URL. Because, a 2,000 word article is one thing, a 17,000 word article is a book. And when the LLMs come through to read them, or they're not going to read the whole thing. I don't know if the audience has watched or observed how very long blocks of text get read, but it'll read the beginning almost word for word, right? And then it's almost like it gets bored and its eyes kind of glaze over and it's reading, but it's not really absorbing. And then at the end, it's like, oh, should pay attention again, and it'll get the stuff at the bottom. But that leaves a lot in the middle that is just skimmed. So if you want to make it more of a bite-sized chunk or a meal that can be consumed in one sitting, you would want to break up those entirely long ultimate guides, especially when they're more than like 2,000 words per page. Break those up into sequential chapters. It's easier to consume, and we don't want to make the crawlers sick. We want to make them happy and satisfied. So I'd go that way. All right. Gemini Intelligence expands proactive AI features on Android. This isn't necessarily website related. However, I think what's going on is this is just a continuation in the moving people off of your website trend. So as we go forward, people are going to be getting information off of your website through these other surfaces, and they're not going to go to your website and interact with your website to see the information or read it. So as Gemini Intelligence is expanding, I think it's expanding to watches, it's on your phone, it's on all these different things. It's very much just not on your website. And I think it's just going to keep getting worse. That being said, you do still need your website as the source of truth, right?
Yes. And I thought even though, again, like you say, it's not technically SEO, to me, it's a form of visibility. And I'll tell you why. It may be far-fetched, but we'll go. So in the bottom right of this image that you may or may not be able to see because it's quite pixelated, in the AI part where it says automate busy work, underneath it says book my virtual spin class, right? So on your phone, you're able to make an appointment. Now, that is connecting with something, which is usually another website or an endpoint via another website, which is agentically enabled in some way that booking can be made and actioned by you clicking that button. So whilst it's not search engine visibility, there is visibility of some kind somewhere that's more immersive. And this is going to all of their devices. And on the top left, I'm also going to paste this. They also announced the Google Book, which is, their laptop device that's going to happen. And this is where Gemini is now becoming a core part of an operating system. So we're getting into the Her film territory. But it does show that all of these things are connected cross-device, something that you may do when you book that spin class. It will then, reconcile with all the other devices and your personal account and all of that. And again, that would not maybe be booked if that website didn't have a feature that allowed you to book that thing. That's where I was going with it, which is search, I guess. It's discovery in some sort.
Search is just not search anymore. It's a lot of things, and we need to broaden our broaden our understanding of what's happening. Speaking of what's happening, Google Analytics has added AI Assistant as a default channel group, which is handy because now we don't have to manually go through and break out all of those referrals from ChatGPT or wherever. We can kind of see all of the AI assistants in one channel grouping. I have not personally seen this yet within Google Analytics, but that is because I tend to use a different tool to pull in the information and process it for me first. So I will have to go and take a peek. Have you had a chance to see this, Alex?
I haven't. I've been buried in slides. I'm at Hive tomorrow for anyone who's local in Manchester, UK. But yes, I mean that we have been able to see stuff in the past. We've also had to use, regular expressions of pulling out all the domains. So it's kind of always been customized up until now. So it is nice to see someone with no technical ability could technically now go into Google Analytics and find a page that does list those things. I think they're probably also fighting with Cloudflare as well, who had their analytics thing, but they're on a server level. And I guess with Google Analytics, once you're in, that's where Cloudflare ends. Here was that visit and goodbye to the data, whereas Google Analytics can take it to conversion, and therefore it's more rich data for you.
So I've been looking more at my actual server logs on the machine itself than look, and Cloudflare would probably be a better place to look though, because even with Cloudflare, sometimes you're getting cached things and they're catching those cached requests.
Yeah.
So Google Analytics, I found it tends to be about 30% off of what your actual server logs will show. And I think if you're behind Cloudflare, I would imagine that's even a little bit more off. And then your server logs are probably not as accurate as the Cloudflare level analytics would be. So just remember, if you've got Cloudflare or any other layers between the universe in broadly and your machine, you're going to want to figure out which one of those layers you've got in between is going to catch the most traffic, because that's going to be the most accurate representation of what you're looking at. But that's something that's probably a deeper topic for another time.
Before we get onto this topic of discussion, there are 135 votes on the poll, which is great. But there are 243 watching, so there's nearly 100 of you that need to go to the poll and vote on something. We've got our own goals here. We need to make sure that over 70% at least have filled out this poll. See, it's going up. Thank you, guys. Thank you. So let's continue. Google released the guide on optimizing for generative AI features and did not cause a kerfuffle whatsoever, did it?
No, there is no upheaval or freakouts in SEO Twitter right now. Not at all. Everyone's perfectly happy.
Well, no, that's not what happened at all, is it? So what actually happened? So this page got released and it cleared some myths, they called it, of what you should do. And in that list, there were many things such as don't create markdown versions of your page, don't create AI reference pages, which included llms.txt and agents.md and other things like that. What else did it exclude as well? Just any other form of content that serves the same purpose, but to a different channel. Now, that kind of caused quite a bit of discussion because there's arguments for and against all of these things. I'm on team, you should make those things. I'm not surprised that a search engine is team, please don't do that thing because it means more work for us for the same benefit. But I don't know, what did you think about it?
My initial takeaway was, hooray, this really confirms a lot of what we've been saying all along, which is they're saying, hey, GEO is just SEO, which is what we've been saying all along. But the whole, don't make the LLMs.txt and don't make the MD files. If you read what they're saying, they're not saying they're bad. And they're not saying they don't do anything. All they said was they don't treat them any differently than a regular text file, which is hunky-dory with me because I would like them to treat it like a regular text file. It's not. I think one thing we need to remember from Google when it comes to things that we read from Google is that Google has always written from and gives advice from a Google is the only thing that exists in the universe, and it's the only thing that matters perspective. And there are a lot of things encroaching on their market share, and there are a lot of things that we care about now that aren't Google. So we still need to do things for the benefit of the entities that are not Google. Obviously, we don't want to screw up anything that we've done for Google. However, we do have ChatGPT, we have Perplexity, we have Claude. There are agents and there are LLMs that, and Bing. Let's not, Bing feeds into Copilot. Copilot is on every big company's system, right?
Yeah.
So we need to make sure that we're accommodating everyone and not taking this guidance, these recommendations that Google offers as the 10 commandments. These are recommendations. They're not carved in stone. They have not been, brought down from on high and presented to us as the law. These are recommendations. They're good recommendations, but they're specific to interfacing with Google, and they do have a little bit of an agenda, and part of their agenda is training us to not overburden or tax their systems, because they don't want to spend more money than they have to. They want things to work right, and they don't want us putting chewing gum in the machine. So, yeah.
Which I get.
Yeah,
I kind of get
get
that, but maybe they should, I don't know, give more direction on if you are going to do it this way. Which is it's all like quite interesting, because we didn't cover this, but in the Google I/O event, which we will be covering during that, Logan, I forgot his last name. Logan is one of the technical people inside Google DeepMind. Specifically said Markdown is a programming language that I'm totally with right now, and uses Markdown as a default for anything that he's doing, but it's not for search, right? But it's still discovering something and creating content based and instructions, right? And you've got llms.txt, which was also mentioned as something that you should do to pass validation in developer tools, but isn't used in search. But as Una replied to me on Twitter, said both can be true at once, which is the really important thing. So search isn't using it as a product, but that doesn't mean it can't be used elsewhere. And unfortunately, again, like Carolyn said, whilst they are a monopoly in the legal sense of the word, and I know they're going through that process, they're not the monopoly that they used to be. I remember 5 years ago, something like that, like if Google did something, they did something and you adhered to it, whether or not you took on their opinion, and all you knew is that everyone else would follow that because they were setting the agenda. Now they can set some of the agenda, but they're not in control of the complete agenda of what's happening right now. So take everything they say with a pinch of salt, but still take what they say seriously.
I would like to make one small request that is only slightly related to what you just said. I know that I've heard twice in the past 3 days now, people refer to Markdown as a programming language. It's literally called Markdown. Markdown and markup are the same thing, and they're not programming languages. It's like HTML. HTML is not a programming language. It's markup. It's hypertext markup language. It's not a programming language. It's not a coding language. Please don't call it a programming language, because it is not. It's not even code. It's just extra jazz that we add around text. So it makes it sound like it's more complicated and more serious than it is. I don't know why that upsets me so much.
It is interesting though, because he called it a program, and he's a programmer. So
but it's again, not.
This is the whole thing, but that's how he sees it. But I agree with you. It's not got conditional elements or anything like that. No. I don't know. So it is a language, but maybe he just added programming because he loves it. So, and he uses it for programming. I don't know.
Language. It's literally not a language. It's decoration that you put around actual language, and the actual language is English.
It's very interesting. I mean, either way, I'm a Markdown fan, so anything he's going saying it, he can be any language as far as I'm concerned right now.
It's literally called Markdown. Literally. It's not a programming language. It's in the name. Okay, anyway, let's go on
before we do go on, Eric did say if they're images, they're not read. Well, John Moo literally said that about Markdown, that agents can read images, so why make anything? And then you can say, well, why have HTML at all? Why can't the internet just be a bunch of images with text in it? I guess that goes to, but again, it uses more compute and it's not as efficient, which goes back down to the markdown argument.
Just because you can do something doesn't mean you want to do it all the time. Like, what did I hear? Oh, there was a movie a long time ago about the life of bees, and somebody asked the bee, it's like, if you can fly, why do you walk? It's like, flying is exhausting. It's easier to walk sometimes. So just because they can read the images doesn't mean they want to do that 100% of the time, because it's exhausting. And sometimes it's easier to just read text. So anyway, that was a reach. It's a Jerry Seinfeld movie, cartoon. It was, anyway. Envato. I don't know how many of you guys have used the Envato marketplace. They sell themes, they sell scripts. It used to be a lot bigger before, really kind of before WordPress took over everything. You can still buy WordPress themes from Envato, but I don't know how many people are doing that. I don't know how popular that is if you can get into the WordPress repository, but long story short, they're changing how they pay out to their sellers. And I suspect, and I think you also suspected, that they might lose some of the WordPress theme developers or some of the other developers they have, because the share of the revenue isn't going to be sufficient to make that a viable revenue model for them.
Yeah, well, I've seen a few people in the chat. Yes, Envato is connected to Theme Forest. They're the group company that own Theme Forest, along with a bunch of others. There's a plugin one as well. I think I forgot all the names of them. But what this changes, why you should care in this audience, is that if you've bought something from Theme Forest or one of the other Envato sites, those developers may now not find that continuing to be on Envato's platform attractive anymore. So if you have a theme and it's something that you want to keep, you may want to get in touch with the developers and just ask them if they're staying on Envato, and if not, what the future is going to be for support, or whatever licenses you bought for updates and things like that. Now, in the future, I would say maybe don't look at Envato as much, because it may dwindle. Developer support may dwindle over time because of this, and move away something more financially attractive. But as Carolyn was saying, a good place to go is the WordPress repo, get a free theme, and maybe look at the premium versions of them to see what they're doing. Because if they got in the repo, they have a bit more EE80, if you want to call it that.
Well, there's security checks that go into getting into the repo initially anyway. So that if they got into the WordPress repo, they had to pass some level of checking. It's a little bit extra security blanket kind of stuff. But it's also easier, I think, to get those things than it is to go through and have the account and buy it and all that other stuff. All right, let's keep rolling. Clarifying that spam policies apply to generative AI responses in Google search. This is guidance that Google gave out again. They have clarified that their spam policies also apply to AI-generated search responses. So I would imagine that the impetus for this was people are manipulating sources that are cited in the AI responses to be spammy, and they don't want you to do that. And I think that because everyone is so, first of all, the AI answers are shoved in your face, and everyone is very quick to pounce on Google if it recommends something that's not true. Like, remember the glue on pizza thing? Google is going to get very upset if you find a way to spam the AI overviews, and they are probably going to come down on you like the fiery fist of God. So I would recommend not spamming in the first place. And if you are spamming, please don't target the AI overviews or the AI generated answers, because you're going to get in trouble and they might blacklist you. We don't know exactly what they're going to do, but they're going to be upset, and it could get you de-indexed or blocked from appearing in anything, and that would be bad.
So don't do bad stuff is the lesson.
Don't do those things.
Don't do those things. Okay.
Oh, I guess this one was me too. So, some of you may know I come from a publishing background. So, Condé Nast is a big publisher. They do a lot of magazines, like I think they do Vogue. They do
Grazia or something. I don't know.
probably
There's loads.
all the fashion magazines that you can think of. They're in New York City, big publisher, right? As as our traffic decreases, as the impressions aren't bringing in the clicks, publishers whose business model is making money off of ads from people who came to their website, that's going to dry up. And what the Condé Nast CEO is telling people is just assume that revenue is gone. Don't make plans that involve an expectation of revenue from programmatic ads on our site, because we don't know how much of that traffic is going to continue coming in. We don't know if we're going to continue losing it. We cannot forecast on traffic that is not reliable, because if the traffic isn't reliable, the ad revenue is not reliable. And if it's not reliable, we can't count on it. That's all this comes down to. But it does show that big companies, big established companies that have been running their businesses on the expectation of we get traffic makes us money, now we have money to do things, that model is going away, and they're already pivoting to accommodate that. So if you are a publisher and your entire business model is I need people coming in to look at my site so that I can show them ads and make money, you need to find another revenue stream, because even the big companies know that's not a reliable source of traffic. And if that's your only source of revenue, it will not keep your lights on. So find another way to monetize your advertisers. Just raising your rates probably isn't going to do it. And if you rely strictly on programmatic, you don't even have the ability to raise your rates, because you're dependent on the marketplace, Ezoic or Mediavine or whoever it is that you're getting your ads from. So this is another big moment in the publishing industry. The internet really disrupted things when people stopped looking at the printed paper, and now this is another big disruptor in news and publishing. So it's a scary time to be those businesses.
Yeah, and I really don't know I can't envision what the publishing world will look like in 10 years. In all honesty, I don't know if it'll, because part of me thinks maybe this is a good thing, because increasing editorial standards, there's not as much crap on the web, maybe as much, and there's less but better quality content on there. But what does that do to, I don't know, I guess your Hello magazines out there who rely on the lower tier
Yeah.
editorial, like I don't know if they're actually in trouble, or if that's still a demand somehow that will get put through.
So like places like Hello Magazine required or relied largely on placement, like at point of sale. So they would be in the grocery store checkout line. They would be along the conveyor belt. So as you were standing there waiting for your turn, you would see these titillating headlines, and you'd grab a copy. I do think that when we remove the need to chase those clicks, we're going to get better quality. We're going to go back, hopefully, to better journalism. We're going to go back to news that matters, or news that is that we should know about, rather than news that we want to know about. Because as much as everyone wants to read the latest gossip about the royal family or the latest celebrities, there's things happening in the world that we might not want to read about, but we need to know about. And I want us to go back to the kind of journalism where they were journalisming, and not just trying to titillate people. So that's my
Yeah, and some of the chat in here is interesting. So Eric, you said that all the good stuff will be paywalled, and maybe it will, but like that sounds weird. But before the internet, like, isn't buying a paper the paywall? Do you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
it
Like, it
was.
was still paywalled content that you needed to get before the internet. And also YouTube content. Theoretically, yes, you can do your content on YouTube. And as I said, podcasting, long form podcasting, is working a lot right now, because it gets them the most natural form of the human out there, and it's less robotic. But on the other hand, I don't know all the figures, but I know that YouTube just change their algorithm. So if you're a creator and you're making like a lot of money, they can just do something like that, and a top creator just not disappears, but all of a sudden they're making 80% less the next day for the same amount of effort. I don't know the ins and outs of YouTube content creation because that's not my wheelhouse, but it can change,
Well,
and you're relying on a platform owned by Google.
YouTube creators, though, they still have that's still a channel that Google makes money on. So Google will continue pushing that to the consumers. So if you look at like Gemini questions, if you're interacting with Gemini the way you do like ChatGPT and you ask it a question, it will find YouTube videos that are just sometimes they're not even really 100% related, but they're as related as they could find, and they'll push YouTube videos at the end of every answer because they want to drive you into that ecosystem and watch the video because they still make money there. So if you're in a position to take the work that you're publishing and maybe have someone read it or do like a little presentation, which is basically just someone reading, or even I don't use an AI to read it because the voices aren't, you can tell.
No, they're not right.
But you can have a little generated kind of storyboard that illustrates the article, and then someone basically just reads it. That kind of stuff is probably going to make more money than putting the content up on your website will. So you can do both, and hope that you can just mitigate some of the losses with YouTube. But I think ultimately it is going to have to go to a paywalled kind of membership subscription model where people are paying for access to that news and information, which is where becoming a preferred news source is also helpful, because that is increasing the odds that you're going to be recommended to that specific user, and they will go through and look at your website. So you might still make a little bit of incremental money on those ads, but you have to find a way to replace that revenue stream if that's your primary moneymaker.
Yeah. We need to crack on with. I
Yes.
thought we didn't have a lot to cover, but in fact we do. What's the next one? Google I/O. I know that people have been waiting for this. So, in short, there's a lot to take in. I actually advise everyone to just watch the hour. You know, the notes and everything that everyone says, because it goes far beyond search into things like Omni, the video creation. They talk about Google Notebook. They talk about anti-gravity and building and how good Markdown is as a programming language. It'll trick you again. But then in search, let's see what they're doing. From what I saw that they are saying a lot less of the term search engine. You know, like if you were to, again, 5 years ago, say what is Google, you wouldn't describe it as a collection of products, even though you knew it was. You would say it's a search engine first. I feel like they're moving away from that, and now it's becoming one element inside their whole ecosystem with Gemini. So when we were talking about the intelligence before and all the new devices, the notebook, the watch, the phone, everything is going to be all seamless between the devices, and the information will be as well, because they've been pumping personalization to, which is big. They also announced, I don't know if it's in here, I don't know what it's called. I think it's a unified wallet. So it's now taking the UCP element and bringing it straight into Gemini. And you know how I've got a Google Wallet, so it's already got my payment methods. So there's technically nothing stopping me from being able to use any UCP powered cart right now, even though I'm not in the US to use it. What else have they done? They've made agents and Sparks, which is, I don't know, for an SEO point of view, they are agents to do the search and research and discovery part on our behalf and bring it back to us like an LLM does, but again, adds a layer of personalization to it. What else did I miss?
I think you covered most of it.
I did.
Why don't
did I just knuckle down that hour into like a 45
you
seconds?
you did a great job, but that's good because we still have a couple more things to check, and I want to make sure that we've got time to do our we've got to make sure we've got time for Q&A. So let's carry on. Just real quick, we only had a couple things that we didn't cover already. There was ask.com. I don't know if any of you remember Ask Jeeves. That has finally shut down. So RIP, Ask Jeeves. He's retired. And then Stripe has launched wallets for agents, which is fun. It's scary. Still not sure I want to do that. But a wallet for an agent means that with Stripe, you can set up a credit card that your OpenClaw or whatever agent you're using is allowed to spend on, and presumably put some controls on it so your agent can't go, I signed you up for a $4,000 masterclass on how to be an executive coach while you slept. You don't want it doing things like that. So having a separate wallet that's dedicated, it's like a credit card for your 12-year-old. You want them to learn how to use it, but you don't want to let them, do dumb things with it. So.
Yeah, I think the product is actually called Link. I think it's link.com. Good domain. But yeah, I think they're also going to probably extend that into like crypto-y stuff. So as soon as that happens, it probably gets all murky, doesn't it? But we'll see how that goes. But that's also their strength of trying to get through to ACP. But I think UCP is running the race there. But enough of also in the news. What else have we got?
We have WordPress news.
Yes.
WordPress 7.0 is out. And I'm sure you all know, because I'm sure you've been bombarded with your WordPress site is updated.
Yeah. And I think it happened yesterday. It came out and there's lots of shiny new stuff, but whether or not it's all really important to you, have a look. I'm going to put in, I'm not going to link to WordPress.org. I'm going to link to our own content. Damn right. Have a look at all the things that are out in WordPress 7. There's that shiny new dashboard. What else have they got? They've got design flexibility. But another thing that's worth noting is that they've got an AI connector plugin now. So you can now connect your Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT directly into WordPress, and you can do things like generate alt tags, generate images, and other stuff as well that connects to the LLM. I don't know whether it's connected to your context and history. I'm going to assume not. But now it's just really easy to do more things with an LLM you've probably already subscribed to.
You know what? I can test that. I'll have to test that and report back and let you know how that goes. Because I do like to keep track of what it's keeping track of about me. All right, so let's keep going so that we can get through this. We do have a little bit of Yoast news to cover. Our new Yoast AI Content Planner is now available. So if you've got our plugin, which I hope you all do, it will turn a blank post into a structured draft for you. So you can hopefully play with that. This is not just for premium, right?
I believe it is. Yes.
Oh, it is?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's part of AI Plus, but I mean, this would be useful for me, particularly because I'm not a fan of writing, and I get the blank page problem, which is where this came from. Not from me personally, but I'm not the only person inside Yoast that says this. So it gives you a little inspiration based on data that's at least enriched or useful.
So excellent. We encourage everyone. Maybe you need to get premium. All right, let's real quick upcoming events. You are at Hive MRC. What today?
Tomorrow,
today and
yeah.
tomorrow. Right?
I'm turning off from this and I'm going straight to the social. And tomorrow I'll be on stage at 9 in the morning. I'm first on, so I've only been. I feel like I haven't been first forever, and then I've done the first talk like 3 times, my last 3 times. But
hey,
if anyone's in Manchester, I'll see you tomorrow.
It's the leadoff position.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
and then June 2nd, I will be in Boston at the SEO FOMO meetup. If you are in Boston for SMX Advanced, which starts the day after. So June 2nd, SEO FOMO. June 3rd through 5th is SMX Advanced. I will only be there on the 3rd, but I'm doing a masterclass. So if you have a ticket and you'd like to attend my it's a master table. It's a discussion more than it is a panel. So that's of interest. And then kind of overlapping that, a whole bunch of Yoast people will be at WordCamp Europe in Poland. So if you're in Krakow for WordCamp Europe, you can find us there. And then a whole bunch of people will be at the Croatia SEO. Well, a whole bunch of people, or just you? I forget.
I think there's a few of us. There's at least 4 of us. I'm speaking. I'm also on a panel at WordCamp Europe as well, but I'll be speaking about Markdown and Markup actually in Croatia. So I'm excited to do that.
Okay, let's hustle on. Oh,
yes.
Next show is June 30th. Let's keep going. Poll results. Are we ready for poll results?
Yes. Poll results.
Okay.
Let's crack them up.
All right, so I'm going to stop sharing. And then we're going to look at the poll results. Where do we find the poll results?
Close. I'll add it. There we go.
There you go. Thank you.
Huh. What concerns do you have the most?
So difficulty measuring. That's kind of what I'm most concerned about right now. So I
Yeah,
think we're all pretty in line for that, huh?
I'm pretty in line. So yeah, measuring visibility and performance. I mean, it's been a bit annoying for the past year. I mean, even our items today have been about wrong data from places we're trying to get data from. But I feel like maybe the GA introduction might make that go down a bit. I don't know. Fewer clicks to my website is going to be an obvious, but that's going to be. I think that's going to be the least of our problems in 2 years, isn't it? It's gonna be another interesting year ahead. Well, thank you very much. That was a really good poll. I'm sure marketing will love that.
All right, I'm looking for some questions. There was one gentleman who kept putting just information in his questions, and those are not questions, so we're not going to
I'll
put
add
those
some.
up.
Let's bring one up. Let's do the FAQ. We've got 5 minutes. Here's a good one. Do you prefer
Okay.
WooCommerce or Shopify? Ooh, oh, I know we only have 5 minutes. I mean, I go with it depends. I found from agency running that physical goods tend to like Shopify more because of the logistical part, the back end. It goes through with weight, packaging, all of that stuff generally plays nicer. But for the SEO in me prefers WordPress for the extendability and the SEO freedom. If you love Shopify, the back end, but you love WordPress, the front end, Shopify have actually made a plugin where you essentially put all your inventory inside Shopify and then you have a WordPress site. I mean, it adds to the effort, but you get best of both worlds. What's your opinion?
I tend to go with WooCommerce because I don't do big, huge shopping sites, and I don't want to pay a monthly fee for 5 products.
Okay. So next, no accordions for grounding indexing. Is it true for CSS only accordions? What if we give our accordions metadata?
It literally doesn't matter because they're not looking at the metadata. The whole point of this is they are not going to interact with your site. Anything that requires human interaction to make it visible is not going to happen. They're scraping the text off the page and they're processing the text. So they're not going to see the metadata. They're not looking at the schema. At grounding time, at inference time, they're scraping the text off the page. Just like imagine a cake, a sheet cake, right? They're taking a spatula and they're removing the frosting layer from the top, and they're only eating the frosting. So anything that's in the cake is going to not get eaten. That's the long and the short of it.
Yeah, I would say so. I would also say maybe sometimes people just imagine that you're just scrolling without clicking anything, and that's what it may see, or hitting Control and A and Control and C, and then pasting that in Notepad, and that's what it sees. So if it's hidden underneath and it doesn't select it when you're copying and pasting, then it definitely won't see it. I mean, that's not foolproof, and there's other emulators out there that can do it as well. So yeah, hope that answers your question, Eric. What's the next one from Sharon? Are open graphs tab still worthwhile? Yes, in my opinion, because this helps social media. I know at the beginning, and do you remember BuzzFeed? I haven't heard from them in a long, long time. But this was
they went out of business because
they
got
must
sued.
Have probably a bunch of this programmatic listicle content, which is dead now. But what they did well is clickbait, and that's how Open Graph works. Is not clickbait, but it's maybe a more legitimate way of putting it. It's a way to convert people to click rather than view. So you can choose the image, the title, and the description, which can be different than an image inside the post or the meta title or the meta description. And if it means that you can entice someone to click by seeing it on Facebook or Instagram, and also X, I know they have Twitter cards, but if you don't fill them in, it defaults to Open Graph, then it's still worth doing. So in short, yes, use them where you can.
They were never for search. They were for social. So you still need them for, when people share if you share your content on X or on Facebook or LinkedIn, all the places that people are sharing your content out that's social, you want to have control over how that appears. That's why those open graph tags are still relevant and necessary.
Yeah. Good. We've got 1 more minute, so 1 more question. And this is for you, Carolyn, I reckon.
We have a lot of massive PDF guidance docs on our site, and we were thinking of making them into HTML docs. He said LLMs skip over the middle bits and that we should have chapters. Okay, not a stupid question, never a stupid question. You can make them into HTML documents. I would say that you don't necessarily have to. They can read PDFs. You might want to make a sitemap of just the PDFs, or maybe, yeah, I'd have a sitemap of that references just the PDFs. So you're going to want to then link that to your index, your sitemap index. You'll want to make sure that you link to the individual PDFs from HTML pages so that there's a way for those to get discovered. As long as those PDFs get indexed in a search engine, they're then eligible to be found and cited by the LLMs. But making them into HTML documents isn't going to hurt. It's a big undertaking. I would weigh the effort versus the reward. It depends on how many you have and how complicated they are, really. You could also make them into MD files. That would be not at all attractive for people to look at, but definitely attractive for the machines to see. There's a couple different ways to handle that problem. I would be happy to talk with you individually offline, because there's a lot of variables that go into the correct answer for that.
There are. And I think this is time. It is time. So
all right.
With that, thank you very. Should I just remove this from the stage? I don't know how to remove it.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Well, we'll just leave it there so Katie Allen can be famous for a little bit. But
okay,
thank you very much. And next month, what was it? The 27th of June? No, it wasn't, because that's a Sunday, so it can't be 27th, 30th.
Is it the 30th?
30th of June next month. Okay. We'll be sending you an email to everyone who's been in here, along with some links, and of course a link back to this replay. But thank you everyone for joining, and thank you for I want 200 responses next month. Thank you very much. But yes. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys next time.
Bye everyone.
Bye-bye.